This is a simple introduction to 3D printers by Clive Andrews. In this presentation, I will give you a brief history of 3D printing. I will show you some of the most common types of 3D printer, and also then show you the Silhouette Alta Cartesian 3D printer, which is the one I own. We will cover 3D printing design and the printing process, and I'll give you snapshots of Tinkercad and Silhouette Studio, which are two common 3D printing programs. I will show a short video on 3D printing, and then there'll be questions and answers at the end. I will not go into too much detail about the history of 3D printing, but I have included links at the end of this discussion for people to follow up on with a lot more detail. Anyway, the idea of 3D printing was around in the 1970s, but the first patents were made in the 1980s for stereolithography. This is using lasers to cure a resin. In the 1990s, there was a selective laser sintering process. This is where the laser melts powder, or metal powder, or possibly or plastic powder, and that builds up by layering the powder and melting with the laser. What we know as 3D printers in the entry-level market are fused deposition modeling printers, and effectively these squirt molten plastic through a fine nozzle, and the nozzle is moved up a fraction of a millimeter each time in order to build up the 3D object. 3D printers at the entry level come in all sorts of shapes and sizes, and we have a selection of Cartesian printers, and on the bottom right hand corner we have an example of a Delta printer. 3D printers at the entry level come in all sorts of shapes and sizes, and we have a selection of Cartesian printers, and on the bottom right hand corner we have an example of a Delta printer. The picture on the left is my Silhouette Alta, and the picture on the right is a close-up of an artwork the Alta has produced called the Thinker, and you can see the brass print head balanced on the top of the artwork there, which gives you an idea of how it was printed. Before we can print something, we have to go through a design process. Typically, you can create a 3D object by manipulating blocks in a 3D CAD program, and we'll see an example of this in Tinkercad. You can convert a sketch or drawing to 3D in programs such as Photoshop. And also the final one, which we're going to have an example of, is extruding a 2D CAD drawing into a 3D object using a 3D program, which I'll demonstrate shortly. The next stage in the process is to scale and slice the design. What happens here is that we're converting the flat coordinates of the drawing into 3D coordinates where you want to move the print head, and commands for how much plastic you want to extrude, and this is called slicing and scaling. We can adjust print options, we can select resolution, internal structures and patterns for the waffle pattern so that we don't use so much material inside the product, and select the type of plastic we use for printing. And then the final stage is to actually print the object, and before that we can adjust the print mechanism. We often have to clean the printer heads, and there's lots of other housekeeping which we need to do. Tinkercad is a popular 3D modeling program. It's web-based and it's free, which is really handy. Objects are created by moving blocks like cylinders and boxes, as you see on the right hand side, placing them onto a 3D workspace and manipulating them by adding and subtracting them to each other. My wife Christine has a Silhouette Cameo crafting machine, and this script Happy Birthday has been created using the 2D program from her crafting machine. This is the Silhouette 3D drawing package, and I have the option of importing the 2D sketch as an extrusion, or it gives me the option of converting it into things like cookie cutters or stencils. So it will automatically convert your 2D object into a 3D item, and you've got options of how it will look. Notice that this is for crafting rather than engineering, so it makes life very simple for crafters. Here you can see that the characters have been raised up like a typeface on a printing block, which is what we're about to produce, and the height of the printing block, or the characters on the printing block, can be adjusted by moving the little black arrow in the very center of the box that you can see there. To form a printing block, the characters have been placed on a base, and the base and the characters have been fused together to make one object by selecting the right tag in the menu on the left hand side. You can see that there's an entry on that menu which will then select the two parts and fuse them together. Here you can see the object has been scaled and sliced, ready for printing. The texture on the surface represents what the print head will do as it builds up the plastic layers from the nozzle, and you can see a ring around the outside, which is where it clears the nozzle before it prints the object. The engineering information on the top right hand corner gives you an idea of how long it will take to print, how much material it will use to print, and below that there are options for cleaning ahead and adjustments and so forth. There now follows a short video with selected highlights from the printing process. This is the silhouette printing the Happy Birthday base, and as you can see, it's got a pentagram arrangement rather than the normal XY arrangement that you see on other printers, and the head is moving on 3 columns which are going up and down. I'll move in a little closer. Here you can see how the head moves backwards and forwards and builds up each of the layers. It does one crosswise diagonally one way, then crosswise diagonally the other way, and then it's now doing a 3rd layer crosswise left to right diagonally, and it will keep on doing this until it builds up the base. You can now see that the head has built up a waffle pattern to fill in the centre core, and it's now covering the waffle pattern with the first of the upper layers. Here the printer is icing the top layer, or the smooth layer, in preparation to start printing Happy Birthday. The printer is just about finished. It's got about 40 seconds to run, and you can very definitely see Happy Birthday now. Happy birthday. So, you've heard a brief history of 3D printing. You've seen examples of common 3D printer types. You've seen how a 3D object is designed and gone through the design process. And you've seen a 3D printer doing its own thing. The next slide has a list of contacts, web contacts for you if you want further reading. And I guess these will be made available separately. There will be a questions and answers session at the end of this. So thank you very much for watching.